Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Welcome to Focus Today. I am delighted and always honored to have with us Daniel Ogan. He's an artist, a consultant, a counselor. He's with the E Agency. You may want to check that out, eagency.net. Is that right? theeagency.net. theeagency.net. And we're here to talk about, well, I think he's nailed it. You're basically saying, Daniel, that true therapy basically happens as a result of being connected to the church or to Christ. Is that a broad statement, or is that accurate?
I think that this is an absolute accurate statement. And remember, you said the word true. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that every therapeutical relationship has to be a formalized Christian meeting, mm-hmm. or even within the church. And sometimes when you're having therapy with somebody, they may be far away from the church.
Right.
But in my mind, I'm always considering a couple of things. Number one, this person's eternal soul, mm-hmm. and how this person can be healed. And no one is healed outside by themselves, especially now.
Right.
I believe that discipleship and being within the church is an extremely important aspect of health. In fact, I would say it's probably one of the most important aspects of health, because isolation and is a very, it leads to darkness, confusion, mm-hmm. and we need the church. And it's taken me a long time, Perry,
to get to that point.
To get to this point, because believe me, I have.
Now
I've
gone through
you've
gone kind of through the clinical cycle, and I know a lot of people do that. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it doesn't complete the job. It doesn't finalize it. The other thing about you that I really, really appreciate, you have what is required in therapy that most people can't deal with, and that's called patience.
Patience.
And just your demeanor requires time. Mm-hmm. And that is usually a struggle. Everything we do in this world is instant. I call it the 34-foot miracle. Mm-hmm. You drive in, you order your hamburger, you drive 34 feet and you pick it up. And that's the mindset of our culture. You have these things. You click, you got information. Mm-hmm. But true therapy requires time and patience, right?
It requires time and patience. And let's look at one of the aspects when you talked about working within the clinical set, so to speak, within organizations outside the church. There are a lot of fine people who are working as therapists.
Right.
But in all of those years that I worked in that field, I seen that it was heartbreaking. To be honest, the actual amount of healing, true healing, is rare. And what are you building people up to? For example, in therapy, let's look at the philosophies of therapy. If we look at therapy, what is generally taught in our universities is basically we are looking at the concept of evolutionary process within the human psyche and the human being. Mm-hmm. And therapy is based on that, based on the concept that we are evolutionary creatures and that there was random events, and that's what man is. That's what a therapist, if you ask what a man is, and if you look at mankind like that, then where are their absolutes? Huh. And what can you do? That's how you're looking at the human being, is just an evolutionary process. But if you start to look at a person as an eternal creature, first of all, that was made in the image of God, then your therapy has to take a completely different route. And that route is clearly defined within our Bible, within the church traditions. And that's the tools that we have to work with. And it took me a long time to come to that, because for many years, I came to Christ through the Jesus movement, and it was kind of anti-church in certain ways. Not really anti-church, but let's get together.
Anti-established church.
Anti-established church.
Right.
And as we ran away from that,
right.
And as I ran away from it as a young person, I wanted to help people, and I didn't feel, for some reason at that time, the church was offering answers, and they were offering very simplistic answers. Accept Jesus into your heart, and then everything's going to be okay. And if your eyes were wide open, you saw that that wasn't really happening.
All right, so with your experiences now, Daniel, how would you define therapy? What would you say therapy is?
Therapy to me is, first of all, it has to be built on trust. Then it has to be built on me having absolute respect for who that human is, that this person is an eternal creature made in the image of God. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. The world. For the life of the world. We're not talking about just the Christian element, so to speak. The world.
Right.
Everybody. And when you open your mind up to that, and everyone that you come across is so loved by God, how do you give them that message? This comes into evangelism. But how do you give them that message and then stay within the therapeutical boundaries? Meaning, some people, I may not mention my personal belief for quite a while until trust is developed. But there always comes a point where that person, in a healing process, they must come into, I believe that's what the church is about, a hospital. And within
so excuse me, to you, therapy and evangelism are synonymous.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so you use therapy, and at the right point, you introduce them that there is a God and he loves you.
And that takes a while.
That takes a while.
One person I'm thinking of this one person, I've had him is in therapy for a year. And when I first met him, he was absolutely against the church, very much into New Age religions, but he was hungry. And I could tell that he had been burnt many years ago within the church. So I was very careful, very sensitive, understanding, I believe, and asking God every moment, dear Lord, give me the words to say. Help me lead this person to the right path. And one of the things that has helped me is that being a member of a church, and I mean a member where I ask my priest, Father Seraphim, for his blessing. I'm under the umbrella of the Orthodox Church. And I believe the church is part of our sacrament is to take healing out into the world. And believe me, if you have this in your heart, people become thirsty.
Big question.
Yes.
Do you think healing, and I don't know if you could use the word true healing, but just healing in its total context, can happen outside of the church?
Okay. I believe the process, okay, first of all, thank God I am not God's lawyer. Yeah. So I don't have to present that case here on this planet. Because our Lord is able to do whatsoever he wants to do.
Right. Right.
He's not a tamed God where we, have it all boxed up.
Yeah.
But generally, I've seen the process of healing comes when somebody comes and this one word we hate in America, submit, humility. Going to a good elder. In our church, this is a priest, or this is someone where you absolutely let your freedom, what is that anyhow? And you say, I'm lost. Not that you become a robot, but that comes even in a family. My son and my daughter are protected as long as I'm showing I'm a good example. I'm not talking that I'm a dictator. First of all, you must have it within your heart. You must be circumcised. They'll feel it right away if you're giving them any kind of phony religious sentiments. And people do not need Hallmark sentiments anymore. God loves you. Well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. They need also both to go through a process, and that's helped me to be within a church and to be in discipleship.
All right, I'm going to have to take a break here, but let me ask you this. So often we approach therapy, those of us who are hurting, and I'm including myself, but I mean those who are looking for help, and we come to a pastor, a therapist, a priest, and we're asking them to help us through an issue or a problem. I wonder if we're approaching them right. I'm wondering if we're approaching them that they got the answer, they're going to give it to me, that'll solve my problem, and I walk away.
That is a brilliant question. It really is. And it's a question that deserves more time than just a simple answer. Yeah. Because that is perhaps the crux of the whole matter.
Yeah, because I know a lot, and the other therapists that I've had on the show will tell you that people come, they just want an answer, and they hope that that answer will solve the problem, they go away. And when it doesn't immediately solve the problem, things get worse. All right, we're going to be right back with Daniel Ogan. By the way, if you want to connect with him, and he does do private counseling, the E-Agency, E as in Ed, the eagency.net is a way to connect with him. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and Daniel Ogan's with us today. He's quite a guy. He's a counselor, a Christian counselor, therapist. He also is an artist. He is an evangelist. He uses therapy and evangelism together. Deals with acts of mercy. He's got more patience than you have, than I have. He's very gentle. He heads up the E-Agency. That's E as in Ed. The eagency.net's probably the best way to connect with him. And during the break, he said something that's fascinating. Let's touch on it just for a moment. You actually are using Skype. So if you're watching on the Dove TV right now and you're not in the immediate Medford area, or if you're listening on the Dove radio and you're not in the immediate Dove area, maybe you're up and down the Southern Oregon coast, you're in Northern California, maybe you're in another state with Roku, who knows where you're watching today. You can contact Daniel through the E-Agency, and you counsel through Skype. How's that going? That's kind of interesting.
It's interesting, Perry, because at first I was intimidated, because I was thinking in terms of to be with somebody, the three-dimensional aspect, for me to feel your spirit, and to me, Skype would be like something between us. Yeah. But I believe God has blessed that medium. Yeah. And
just like you and I today,
yes,
we're not sitting in the living room with thousands of people, but they're watching it and they're feeling it and sensing it. God uses it.
Right. I had to come to that. So
it's working for you.
I'm a dinosaur.
Oh, I don't know about that. All right. Now, we were dealing with selecting a therapist, which is so key. At that moment, if we're in a hurting position in our life and we seek out counseling, if we're not careful, we're saying to that person, I'm going to come into your office, I'm going to sit in front of you, and I'm going to unload my life to you. At that moment, you're kind of God in the flesh for that person. Mm-hmm. And I understand that that can be abused, or it can be taken with incredible sense of responsibility and humility, which I believe is your approach. But if, from my perspective, in order to set the scene right, is there a question I should be asking you before I give you my life story?
I think that the question we need to ask our therapist is not how much education they have, although that's important, but what is your view, what is man? Simple question.
What is man?
Yes. Now, a therapist, now remember, when we're talking about Freudian therapy, now he is like the great godfather of therapy. He absolutely did not believe in God. He believed that that was an opiate, that the true health of a human being had us to take those shackles off and accept the responsibility as it is that we are born and we die. And if we're part of an evolutionary process, and that therapy is going down and resolving, so to speak, conflicts are in the subconscious, and it goes on and on. But their view of man is we are part of an evolutionary process, which influenced our world immensely. In fact, it was one of the great heresies of the 20th century. And it has influenced so much therapists, even Christian therapists. It's taken me a long time to even try to get an escape from that concept.
Really?
I look at man as made in the image of God. I look at you or anybody that I come across as great mysteries that I cannot possibly understand you completely. And I need God's discernment. Does not matter how much that I can give you words. I could, let's just say that I'm talking to you and I do an assessment and I come up and I say, well, you have post-traumatic stress syndrome. Good. What does that do? What does it do that I name something? You know that old question, William Shakespeare and Hamlet. I love this one quote. He said, Hamlet is feeling heartsick, and he goes and he says, "Doctor, can you pluck this sorrow from my soul?" Mm-hmm. Think about this. Mm-hmm. Think about mankind and his long existence. What did we do without therapy, psychology, and all the history of mankind? Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at it in therapy. Everyone that I come across, first thing I say to myself is, I don't have the answers. I tell that person I don't have the answers, and then I clearly tell them what this process is going to accomplish and what mental health is. That's another question. How do you define mental health?
I don't know. I come to the conclusion you can't understand the fact that somebody else doesn't understand. You know, and when the cases where I've been involved with mental health issues, the person who has a mental issue doesn't understand that you can't understand. So you're almost in an impasse. If God doesn't open a door there, you're kind of in a catch-22 situation. Right,
and then how is that person led out of that? And how in longevity, because life is long. And unless you as a therapist give this person tools, that's your job. And to me, the major tool for me is, first of all, my relationship, my personal prayer, but also my relationship within the church, because I believe the church is a family and a sacred place. I do believe in having that umbrella. And if I have clients, for example, I have many people from different churches, but as a therapist, after a period of time, because I have Christians who say, I hate the church, I don't want anything to do with it, I do not trust it whatsoever. In fact, I'm not even sure about, it's okay to have those doubts. With me, it's okay to say whatever and have whatever doubts, because I'm going to feel those doubts, and I'm not going to attack them. But the process is leading a person back in to what? There are two kingdoms. When we get down to it, there are the children, the kingdom of darkness, and the kingdom of God. We know that.
The kingdom of light.
That's where we're at.
You use the term acts of mercy. Now, define that, and how do you use that in therapy?
Acts of mercy. That is a good question also. I'll tell you one. I'll give you an example. In most therapy, we meet with somebody for an hour, once a week. They don't know who we are. Now, I work with people quite extensively, and I do different things. And one person that I know of, she grew up as a Christian, got in the wrong road, started using methamphetamine, still had a work ethic, made money, but still was using meth. And through circumstances that weren't hers, those unfortunate circumstances, the feds came into her house, she was arrested, and now here's this girl who grew up in a Christian family, had a good family, is going to penitentiary for 15 years. First of all, I got her, you know, she detoxed off the meth, and then she said, will you help me face prison? How am I going to do that? She lives in Louisiana. Acts of mercy. I go down and stay with her and her husband. They see me every day. They know who I am. They know my spirit. They understand that what I'm giving them is inside of me. It's not a philosophy. It's the bread of life. And they are so hungry.
So, do you incorporate, obviously you do, but you incorporate that because you believe it's part of the healing process?
I absolutely believe it.
Or is it part of the trust building process?
Trust building, and everyone's different, meaning that was an act of mercy.
Mm-hmm. For you to go there and be with them.
And in that act of mercy, this person had completely come to Christ, is flying down here to be baptized by Father Seraphim, going through the catechism over the Skype. And what is a catechism? Catechism is therapy. It is telling us the perimeters of this life.
All right, that's a good question to ask. It appears, and I'm a lay counselor, and I get it by default, not because I look for it. I'm overwhelmed with it sometimes, but it appears that people want justification for where they are more than they want change, which requires boundaries and accountability. It's like they want it without boundary and accountability, right?
That is true. But what if you were with somebody who had learned to scapegoat and manipulate and was not taking responsibility for where they were at and were going deeper into the hole, but had they were narcissistic? They couldn't, you know, that's the narcissism is not being able to love or receive love. We're talking deep into narcissism. So let's just say I have people like that. What do I do?
Yeah. What do you do?
I am patient with them. I tell them the first thing, I go, as a therapist, I'll tell you the most important thing for you and I is this. And they go, what's that? And I go, that I become salt in your life. And they go, what does that mean, salt? That I make you thirsty. Without thirst, and if you're patient, that takes an intense amount of acts of mercy, not to throw what you know. That's having patience, meaning not just slamming this person with a bunch of scriptures and all that, but understanding where you're going and taking the time.
What keeps you from trying to accomplish too much in a session?
Because
I guess it's I make that mistake every time.
Because I separate between two things. I have what I call first aid sessions, meaning what I'm saying is right now we're not going to do therapy. We're going to do first aid. We're going to take care of the things that are hurting you most. But this is not therapy. This is not going to do, you know, therapy is a process, and that's how I differentiate between the two.
Well, Daniel is a blessing, and he has the E as an ed agency, theeagency.net. You can contact him 541-951-4134, 951-31-4134. And if you're out of town, you can connect with him via Skype as well. Thank you, my friend. Blessings.
Thank you, Perry.
You are a blessing. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.